Welcome to the First Right Podcast, a weekly conservative news show brought to you by Restoration of America. I'm Jerry Ewalt, Chief Marketing Officer for Restoration of America, and today we are blessed to have Marshi Smith, co-founder of the Independent Council on Women's Sports, which is fighting nationwide to protect women's sports from the onslaught of gender insanity. Smith is a former NCAA champion swimmer. Well, Marshi, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. And Marshi, I want to know a little bit about you. Tell us a bit about your background, your story, what led you to start Icon. Let us know.
Sure. So I started swimming when I was 6 years old in my neighborhood swim pool in Virginia. Dove across the deep end, touched the wall first miraculously. And in those days, you got out, you stood up, dripping wet, and they handed you a blue ribbon immediately. And from that moment on, I was pretty much hooked on the sport. Not necessarily because I loved the fun of swimming, more so it was that feeling of accomplishment and winning. And so I was hooked from then on. I swam in Virginia through high school. I was a 6-time Virginia state champion. Then my family relocated to Nevada, where I won another 4 state titles in Nevada, I believe. I was recruited to the University of Arizona, where I had a wonderful athletic department staff and coaching staff, Frank Bush and Rick DeMott. I won a Pac-10 and NCAA championship title my junior year in the 100-yard backstroke, which was one of the greatest days of my life. The next year I had big aspirations for my senior year after, coming off a national title win. And tragically, I wrecked my shoulder overtraining. And basically that NCAA championship race was essentially my last swim race. I had aspirations to go for the Olympics. And suddenly, I was forced out of the sport against my will. And, that's why watching this past season unfold, it really hit me very hard because, I was watching these seniors winning and women who didn't know, maybe like me, that was going to be their very last swim race ever. And It was really tainted quite a bit with the events that unfolded.
Yeah, it was like coming right off of COVID. It led right into this, and I can imagine, just the disappointment because there's so many athletes out there that didn't have a season because of COVID, right? So everything starts back up again, and then before you know it, especially for the women, now they're competing against biological males. And hearing your story and your excitement of when you were a kid racing and the confidence it instilled in you, and I'm assuming, maybe as a child, but you were probably not racing against biological males throughout high school and college.
No, never. I mean, it wouldn't have even crossed my mind. And swimming's kind of a unique sport because we train, pretty intimately with men and women in the same lanes. So we're head to head on a daily basis. We go to meets together. We, are fully integrated in our training together. So it's unique because I know really deeply the differences between men and women because we train together so frequently. And yet we never, ever would have even crossed our minds to actually go head to head in a competition with each other. And so it's almost like watching this season unfold was like beyond belief to me, which is why I kind of had this sense of denial watching the season unfold and continuing throughout the season to hear and see media reports that this is continuing on and on, when in the beginning I first heard and thought, oh, wow, well, somebody's going to take care of this. I mean, the NCAA could never allow this to go as far as the conference championship or certainly not the national championship. And I was proven very wrong on that, shockingly.
Yeah, it's insane. So you touched on you trained with men, and one of the things that your organization talks about is the science behind the sexes, and in there it states that men have a 10% speed advantage over women. This is scientific fact by the way. 30% in power advantage and a 50% in strength, right? So there are clearly differences between men and women, especially when it comes to competition in sports. And so, you're watching the season unfold where, like you said, this could be your last race. This could be your last experience. And you work your whole life up towards that. And then all of a sudden, now women are competing against men. And you saw this happen. And it seems insane, like this would never be allowed, but yet it was.
It was such blatant sex discrimination to, kind of gaslight these women into accepting that this was a quote nice thing to do, to step aside and allow a male to win an award. I mean, Leah Thomas was the Ivy League Woman of the Meet at their conference championship. Leah has 5 freestyle records at UPenn on the women's board. So we have the men's record board filled with men, and then now half of the women's board is also, taken by a male athlete as well. So it's like women are really, truly being erased off of the record boards, and yet we're being told by leadership that this is the right thing to do. I mean, it's like a backwards alternate dimension sometimes, listening to particularly the NCAA continue to double down repeatedly on these, guidelines.
I mean, isn't this the opposite of what Title IX was supposed to do?
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is coming from the top down. It's coming from a lot of places, but the Biden administration has really made a formal assault on Title IX, basically wanting to conflate the definition of sex in the law to mean gender identity, which essentially erases the law. I mean, to say that you're not going to deny someone the benefits, based on sex, and then to say, well, men can opt into this. It doesn't make any sense. It's against the law, which is why we have put forth a legal demand letter to the NCAA, basically telling them they must comply with the laws of the country, not the changed interpretations coming from the Department of Education and the Biden administration, but to follow the original intent 50 years ago that was put in place to ensure that women have equal opportunities in sports to male counterparts. I mean, it's not some unreasonable expectation.
Yeah, we're going backwards. It's amazing that is happening. But hearing your story, you're a competitor. You're not going to sit by and allow this to happen. So what did you do?
So we have organized ICONS, the Independent Council on Women's Sports. I'm one of the co-founders. Kim Jones is the mother of an Ivy League swimmer who had to compete head-to-head against Leah Thomas all season. And basically, we wanted a team because what we were finding was that nobody was advocating for the female athlete perspective on this. Sports governing bodies are looking to trans activists to say, hey, what do you want in terms of our policy? And then they're just going along with that against science and reason, common sense, biology. And so we want to offer, legislators, sports governing bodies, coaches, school boards,
Yeah.
a resource where they can come find the science. They can find what is the legal landscape. They can talk to the athletes directly. And so that we can have a seat at the table when determining not transgender policy, but this is a women's sports
Right.
policy. So we should be consulted, with for the rules that dictate our own eligibility category.
So wait a minute, Marcia. You're telling me that you are trying to follow the science, that there are differences between biological males and biological women, and it makes a difference in sports. I mean, there's an onslaught, right? It all happened, it seemed, at once. Especially, I participated in many school board meetings, and because I was shocked and appalled at what they were advocating in terms of education for our children, for things that they should not be taught at this point, and they're not mature enough to know this type of stuff. So I love that your organization is following the science. So tell me a little bit more of that. How are you educating the public of the differences so that we don't have this issue moving forward?
Well, one of the most compelling things is to let the athletes speak for themselves. There are so many girls. This is not a swimming problem. This is across every single sport at this time, every single age group.
Mm-hmm.
So the public, if they heard all the stories that I hear on a weekly basis from parents and the athletes themselves, I mean, we would feel a lot bigger sense of urgency, I think. But there is this intimidation factor.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that really have lost their jobs, lost friends and family because they're stepping out of line, maybe from their party. Maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
traditionally a liberal person and really have that double sense of, oh, I can't speak out about this. So number one, telling the stories, get the athletes to speak up, have courage,
Mm-hmm.
encourage all of them to speak out, especially parents on their behalf. And, we want to continue to apply pressure internally, externally. We just did a rally at the NCAA convention in San Antonio 2 weeks ago. And basically, we wanted to show the NCAA, we're here. You need to stop discriminating against your female athletes. We were picked up by 1,000 media outlets. And we want to continue the conversation to say, hey, if you are a board member on these sports governing bodies, they tell us directly behind the scenes and privately, hey, I'm with you. I'm on your side. And yet the policy unfolds and they're taking this kind of middle ground,
Mm-hmm.
but still allowing males in women's competition. And we want to say it's okay to draw the line. Like, please stand up in these meetings. You have the science behind you, you have law behind you. I mean, really, we need to take a stand against these one or two people we're finding per sport or per
Right.
organization that has an activist position.
Yeah, it gets all the media attention, and what you see is that they're going along to get along, and we have to stop doing that. That is not making anything better. It's actually making it much worse, and you guys are fighting to make sure that it happens. So how have you guys been received? You talked about media attention and things like that in rallies. Have you guys been attacked, or is this been actually very positive so far?
When I initially was launched into this, it was because I was asked by a teammate at the University of Arizona to write a collaborative letter on behalf of our team. And so there's about 45 of us spanning generations back to the 90s to present day, really accomplished Olympic champions, world champions, NCAA champions, women of the year. I mean, stellar swimmers on this list. Some of them have sponsorships that are telling companies are telling them you can't speak out publicly on this, yada yada. There are threats. Many work for universities where their
Mm-hmm.
careers are, at risk. In whatever capacity you want to help, if you want to help,
Yeah.
to do something, we can do it anonymously or very publicly. Everybody needs to play a role in this, and we need more numbers. We need people behind us in every single sport. So please come to us, and we would be happy to help you to affect your individual sport, your state, your team. One thing that people can do right away is write a letter like we did at the
Hmm.
University of Arizona. We sent it to our school and also to the NCAA. Even though they never responded, that doesn't mean they didn't get it and
That's
they
right.
don't get the message. And they're not having crisis meetings behind the scene that we're hearing about secondhand. So we need to apply pressure. And the more letters they receive, the more calls, the more conversations, the higher it pushes up this topic on their agendas in their board meetings coming up. And we want this to be on the top of their list until they decide women deserve fair competition at every age and every level. So we
Hmm.
will defend that and make a big public statement to put forth policy that aligns with that.
So obviously the NCAA has been in the news, but you go even lower, right? High school, elementary school. You're willing to get involved in all of that.
Absolutely. And that we have a limited amount of manpower, but what we're finding is that women athletes are some of the most well-connected, confident, hardworking, and dedicated people on the entire planet. So we are getting women who are coming to volunteer, former Olympians, world champions, Olympic champions that are helping us, and we're definitely not going to stop. So for the NCAA and all of these governing bodies like the IOC, Olympic Committee, and
Hmm.
even governmentally. So for these associations, the IOC, International Olympic Committee, for the government, for state legislators, for school boards and universities to align in opposition to some of the most powerful women on the planet. I mean, if it were me, I would not be betting against us. So it's time for them to get in line now and back these women athletes because it's the right thing to do. It's not just science. This is the right thing to do. We need to preserve the opportunities of our daughters, like my 6 year old, moving forward so that she has the same opportunities that I did, not only to participate, but to win and to succeed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm definitely getting out of your way. I mean, there's no chance you guys are going to fail on this, and I love. I mean, it just makes so much sense. But I love the fire that you guys have come up with and say, enough is enough. And can we get the men out of the women's lockers too? I mean, I have daughters myself. I don't want that to happen. No one wants to see that happen.
Yes, I mean, we are hearing some disturbing stories now of 80-year-old women, 17-year-old girls, that are put in these really, honestly, dangerous situations, traumatizing the Ivy League swimmers at NCAA's and on the UPenn team. Some of them have never seen male genitalia in their
Yeah.
life, and suddenly they're in a situation where they're in a locker room with a nude male, and then their administrators are telling them that they need to seek counseling if they're not okay with that. I mean, this is really a pivotal point, I feel, in the history of America if we're going to allow
Absolutely.
this to continue. So we need to really start speaking up because the opposition, they know how to be loud, but we have the numbers and we can't
Yeah.
rely on this kind of silent majority stuff anymore. We need to be a really vocal majority.
You used to get arrested for that kind of stuff. Enough is enough, and we need to stand up against this. So Marshi, I love that. And look, what's the best way that they can get in contact with you?
So our website is www.iconswomen.com, ICONS women.com. Our social media is icons_women. You can find us there. Look me up, Marshi Smith, on our website. Please go into our YouTube channel on our website, watch some of the presentations. A lot of this confidence in being able to speak about this, even to friends and relatives and family, which is where we need to start these conversations, is just in equipping yourself with just basic stats. And ultimately, what you need to know is that, again, the science is on your side, the law is on your side, and doing what's right is the right thing to do. So, have that confidence, teach yourself through some of the resources we have available. Get in contact with us if you want to volunteer. So reach out to me, Marshi Smith, my co-founder, Kim Jones. Find us on our website, social media. If you want to volunteer, we will connect you, and we have a lot of ideas of how to do that. However, some of the best ideas are coming from the outside, from people who want to be involved, saying, hey, let's try this, let's do this. I know so-and-so, let's write template letters to send to my government officials and my school board and whatnot. And so we want all of your ideas, your help. Please come join us on monthly webinars where we are showcasing athletes and experts on this. You can go back on our YouTube channel, Icons Women, and find some of those resources there. But if you want to connect, we are happy to have you. So please join our team.
That's great. Well, Marshi Smith, thank you so much for joining us and bringing back some sanity back to our country.
Oh, thank you so much for all you do.
All right, well, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting conservative media. And don't ever forget that by working together and staying diligent, we conservatives can bring our country back to true greatness. Until next week, let's all keep praying that God will continue to bless America.
First Right, a new kind of news summary without the liberal slant. Every morning, in your inbox, always free. Subscribe by texting First Right to 30161. That's First Right, all caps, one word, to 30161.